Hey guys, hey, this is Anne Marie of the Anti-HR Consultancy. As you guys know, on this channel, I talk about all things HR, but from an employee perspective, and I try to educate employees about their workplace rights so that they feel prepared to assert those rights, especially now when they need to. As you can hear, I still have a cold. I have been fighting for my life with this cold for the last week or so. It actually got worse when I got home, and my doctor actually had to come out to see me. Yes, in Mexico, doctors make house visits. So I was lucky enough to be here when it really got bad. And my doctor came and took a look at me, and now I'm on multiple prescriptions, and I'm finally beginning to feel a little better. And even though I don't sound better, at least I don't feel my voice is back to normal, I feel better. Yesterday, I did not feel as good as I feel today. So every end of the day before that, I felt worse than I felt. So I'm beginning to feel better. He made some tweaks to my prescription, and thanks to my wonderful doctor, Dr. Garcia, you guys can thank him in the comments, I am pushing through and actually beginning to feel better. But I did want to come on here and talk a little bit about something that has been on my mind. So for the last 2 weeks since I got back from travel, I've been doing discovery calls. And something has struck me, especially this week, but also last week. A majority of individuals who have come to me to raise concerns about their workplace have been raising concerns about hostile, toxic work environments that feature managers that are either Black men or Black women. So my question is, Black people, what are we doing to each other at work? What are we doing to each other at work, especially now? We, and when I say we, I mean Black people generally, but Black Americans specifically, but all Black people who are working in American workplaces, whether you are Black American, immigrant, but Black, anybody of African descent working in American workplaces, I need y'all to come to the front of the class. Because what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing to each other at work? I am getting too many stories in the last 2 weeks from people who are Black, primarily Black women, telling me very troubling stories about problematic supervisors who are also Black American, right? So far, it hasn't been a Black immigrant co-worker or a Black immigrant supervisor, even though I heard about y'all before and I've made videos about y'all. So don't feel this is not about you as well. This is about how we as Black people are treating each other in these work environments and how we are trying to climb that ladder by stepping on each other's heads and then pulling the ladder up behind us. We're not gonna make it. I have to tell you that if you feel the only way that you can succeed in these American corporate work environments is by stepping on the heads of those that look like you, you will not make it either, because they are just using you to do their dirty work for them so that they can feel their hands are clean, even though they are not. I've just heard some very troubling stories, and I just wanted to get that off my chest. But I also wanted to say, in more than one of the stories that came to me this week, and when I say stories, I'm not saying that they're stories because I don't believe they're true. It's just an expression. But these are the experiences that people are sharing with me. More than one of them shared experiences where their supervisors were showing preference for their white coworkers and were allowing their white coworkers to do things and get away with things that they were then seeking to be punitive with their Black direct reports about. Or they would ignore when white subordinates did things, but call their Black subordinates on the carpet publicly in many cases when they did the same things, like calling in, taking days off, things like that. And I just want to say that if you're experiencing a work environment where you have a Black supervisor who is showing preference for non-Black employees, you have a discrimination claim. Discrimination is a thing no matter who does it. And it would be my pleasure to help you to raise your concerns and get that person fired. Because one thing I want you Black folk who want to curry favor with your white superiors at the expense of your own people to know, they will fire your ass. They might put circle the wagons around Katie and Kyle and them. But trust and believe, when somebody brings receipts on your behind, you will get fired. You will get reprimanded. And I will be more than happy to help someone make that happen for you. As a person who got their first payout from their employer behind a trifling Black woman who was so busy kissing Massa's ass that she couldn't see the forest for the trees, I want you to know that we are often sacrificed. They are often more willing to make us be accountable when we act in a discriminatory manner, even at their direction, when the complaints start coming through the door. And that's the truth, as well as for creating hostile work environments, creating environments where you're bullying people, verbally abusing people, yelling and screaming at people. And these are all things that some black supervisors seem to think it's okay for them to do if the people they're doing it to are Black. Some people think that if they do it to their own, they can get away with it. And that's why they do it. They wouldn't dream of doing it to Becky or Kyle. They treat them with kid gloves. But when they're put in a position of supervising people that look like themselves, they use as an opportunity to engage in abuse and mistreatment, often the same abuse and mistreatment they've experienced on their way up the ladder. And they take delight in subjecting someone else who looks like them to that abuse. But trust and believe, you can be held accountable for being discriminatory against people that look like you. Trust and believe that. Something else that someone mentioned to me was also dealing with people. One incident did involve a person who was a person of color but not Black. But out of at least 4 or 5, over the last week, I've probably spoken to 15 or more people. And I would say a good 5 or 6 of those people mentioned supervisors who were Black and or one who was not Black, but a person of color who was engaging in problematic behavior. And, I know these things happened. I've experienced it myself, so I know it happens. And I have theories about why it happens, but I'm going to give you a story from my own experience, because sometimes I think telling people stories from my own experience helps them to kind of get a better understanding of the dynamics of this stuff. And I kind of related this story to one of the people I spoke to this week, and I told her I would try to remember to do it in a video, and so I'm going to do it now. And this is from the very beginning of my career. This is even before I got my first payout. So this is when I was really young. I was in my 20s, probably before I was even 25, this happened. So the way that I handled it was very different than the way that I handle things when they happened to me later, when I was, I guess, in my late 20s, almost 30, or no, I was actually over 30 at the time, right? When the first incident occurred, I was like 30, I think, or something like that. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was much older, and I was in law school on my way to graduating, but not finished yet. So I was in a lot of ways, completely different person, just as I'm a completely different person now, because you live, you learn, you evolve. And if you're lucky, you never stop learning and evolving. But so I was really young, and I was working at a hospital. I won't say which one, but it was a major hospital in Washington, D.C., very well-known, well-respected institution. And there are lots of hospitals in Washington, D.C. That's why I can say hospital, because I know if I don't say more than that, it could be any hospital because there are lots and lots of hospitals in the DC and in DC area. But I was working in a hospital, and I was working in the billing department of the hospital, but I was working for I was the assistant to the executive assistant who reported to who reported to the person, the CEO of the institution that oversaw the billing for a particular entity in the hospital. That's what I'll say. So there were more than one billing entities in this institution, and I was working for a white woman who reported to another white woman, and that white woman was over the whole, it wasn't even a department, it was an actual separate entity, right? And I was hired by the executive assistant. I guess she had enough money, and they had enough money to let her hire her own assistant, so I was it. And I actually really liked my manager, and I have nothing negative to say about her. She wasn't my manager for very long, but I'll get to that in a minute. But she hired me, and she told me that one of the main things she wanted me to do was she wanted me to go to the staff meetings for the billing team, right? And the major part of what her boss was responsible for was making sure that the money came in and went where it was supposed to go. And it was a lot of money. And the person who was reporting to this white woman, gotta follow me now, was a black woman. And she was over the whole, overseeing the billing operation. So she reported to the white woman. The white woman was her boss, but she managed the actual operation of the billing, the accounts receivable, and the money coming in, and dealing with the insurance companies and making sure that the billings for whoever they were billing for, and I'm not going to say all of that because I'm trying to treat this with a certain level of confidentiality. Even though I really don't have to, because we'll get to that, but I am, because I try to be a professional. And this was a long time ago, but I do remember, and I'm giving you the story with accuracy. And I'm sorry that I have to rub my nose, but as I said, I have a cold, and I'm having issues with my allergies as well this week. But anyway, so she hires me, and she tells me that one of my main responsibilities is that she wants me to go to the meeting of the team that does the billing. And that's what she tells me to do. And she wants me to take notes and transcribe them. The other part of my job was responsibilities for going to a board meeting also that they were responsible for managing. But this is what's pertinent. So she hires me. She sends me to this meeting. I go to the meeting. And this woman, who is a black woman, let's call her Kathy, comes into the meeting. And the first thing I remember about her was how well dressed she was. And then the second thing I remember about her was about how incredibly nasty she was in how she spoke to the people in the meeting. And there had to be at least 25 or 30 people in the room, right? We're all working the billing. And I don't remember what she said as much as I remember how she said it, and that she cursed at them. She screamed at them. She told them that they were doing a terrible job. She threatened to fire people. This was all in a staff meeting. And I remember at some point, someone pointed out that I was this person's new assistant, and she kind of rolled her eyes. I found out later that she didn't necessarily want me there, that her boss had said that she wanted someone from her office to be at the meetings. And when she learned that I was there, then she kind of took it down a little bit, her tone and stuff a little bit, right? But she was extremely condescending and just nasty. And I took notes as I was instructed. I went back to my supervisor and I told her what I had observed, because I was in shock, and I'm like 23 or 24, something like this at this point, 22, 23 years old. And she apologized to me for making me go to the meeting. But she said that the reason she made me go to the meeting was that she couldn't bear to go to the meeting anymore because she hated the way that this woman spoke to her staff, and that she had complained to her boss about it, but that her boss said that she would talk to her about it, but she didn't know whether she had or not. But she just did not like seeing the way this woman treated these people. And so she wanted me to go because she didn't want to go. And I'm her assistant, and so I had to go. And she apologized to me for making me go, was basically like, tag, you're it. You've got to go to these meetings, right? And on multiple occasions, she wanted absolutely no dealings with that Black woman. She intensely disliked her. She intensely disliked the way that she treated her staff. But what she explained to me was that she was doing, the Black woman, Kathy, was doing such a good job at getting in the money really fast and getting the billings cleared and the insurance claims cleared, that the powers that be loved her because she was bringing the money in. And so they didn't care about the complaints that people had lodged, and that people had gone to HR on her, and that she had a lot of turnover in the office. But despite all the turnover, she was getting their money in. And so despite that, her boss, the white woman, not my boss's boss, decided to basically overlook the way this woman behaved. And there were days when we would hear her. She was literally at one end of the hallway, and all of her team sat around the corner from where her office was. And I was on the opposite end, closer to actually the billing, another billing department that worked for another part of the hospital, but did not report. And that billing department reported to a white woman. And that white woman was loved by her team. And she worked with, her team was not all Black. Her team was mixed. There were mixed groups of people in there, but they all really loved her. But the Black team who worked for the Black woman, who was verbally abusive to them, was on the other end of the hall around the corner. And they were actually a smaller team than the other team, but yet they were doing a better job in terms of percentages than the white team, because this woman was basically running her department like a plantation. And I would overhear people talking about how they had to stay late and work extra hours and they weren't getting paid overtime, which I later learned was illegal. And just all kinds of problems. And in 3 months after I came there, my boss left. She got promoted. Well, she didn't get promoted, but she got offered a job in another office in the hospital that was a promotion. And she got applied for it and she got it, and she left to actually be a director of a doctor's practice in the hospital. And she, apologized to me, but told me she thought I would be fine. Because, she liked me, but she didn't like me enough to take me with her, right? And left me to work for whoever her boss would decide to hire, right? And what I observed basically was that her boss was very well aware of how horrible this woman was, because literally I was working at the end of a hall. My boss's office was 2 doors away from the cubicle I worked in, and then 2 doors away from her office was the big boss, the white woman's, who came in late in the day, and I couldn't figure out what she actually did. And then at the end of the hall was the Black woman who reported to her, right? And the white woman, I noticed, was out a lot, took a lot of vacations. The only thing she really seemed to care about was that you made sure you put through her kids if they ever called her. She had 2 twin daughters, if I recall correctly. And she was very adamant, because I remember the only time she got stern with me was she was in a meeting and one of her kids called, and I took a message, and she told me that anytime her kids called, she was to be interrupted. That was a big deal to her. Sounds like she was a pretty good parent. She was one hell of a shitty leader, because she would listen to this woman yell and scream at her staff. And not one time did I ever see her come out of her office, reprimand her, anything. She was very well aware of how horribly this woman treated her staff, because it was in the notes that I submitted, and her prior executive assistant had made her aware of it. She didn't care. As long as the numbers were what she wanted them to be, she did not care how that woman treated those black people. And as a result, she was allowed to just terrorize those people. So after my supervisor who hired me left, another woman came in her place, and that woman was pretty awful. Not as awful as the other woman down the hall, because she wasn't dumb enough to try to yell at me. But she didn't like me, which was obvious because, I spoke up for myself and I said what I thought, and she didn't like it. And at some point within the month or two that she came in, she reprimanded me because she overheard me saying something about how I felt about how the black woman was treating her staff. And she called me into her office and reprimanded me and told me that I had no right to say anything to anyone about that, and that I was not to comment about that. And I would say probably in a week or two after that, I wrote her resignation letter and I left. I didn't give her any notice. I left. It's probably the only time that I can think of that I ever quit a job without giving them notice, because I just basically told her I could care less about working for her. I didn't like her. I didn't think she was a good person. I thought that they were a horrible employer. I wrote all about what I observed in my resignation letter. I left it on her desk on a Friday, and I never went back there. I went down to HR, and I gave them a copy of the letter and told them that I wanted my last paycheck. And I remember the HR woman kind of being in shock and asking me if I really wanted to submit that letter as my resignation letter. I think she thought that I cared about whether they would hire me again in the future. And I told her I would never work for that hospital if they were giving jobs away, and that I would rather work as a temp for the rest of my life. And I went and worked for a temp agency for a while and was perfectly happy. And that temp agency ended up placing me in a really great job in the federal government system, in an independent agency of the federal government that I won't name, but it was a wonderful overall, even though I was surrounded by white people, and I'll tell you all a story about that for another time, because there's a good story I got with that one too. But I got what the older people like to call some good white folks at that federal job. And I worked in the office as a legal secretary, which is where, and has a lot to do with how I ended up in law school, but I'll tell that story another time. But I left that job without even giving it a thought. And the reason I did that is because of my beloved late mother and the conversation my mother had with me many years before that, where she had let me know that if people mistreated me in a job, that it was my responsibility to quit. And I had watched my mother quit jobs, good jobs. Now, of course, my mother was married to a wonderful man who is my father, who is still alive. May God continue to extend his life, who took very good care of my mother. So my mother could quit a job and would, if she felt that people were trying her, that they were disrespecting her, that whatever, my mother would quit a job. And my mother always would tell me, if people are disrespecting you and they're not treating you right, quit that job, right? And so I quit the job. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought. I was just like, I could work at a temp agency, because before I got the job, I had been working at a temp agency, and I'd worked at temp agencies before, and I kind of liked it at that point in my life, because I would get to learn things. I'd meet new people. I took that job at the hospital because they offered it to me as a permanent position, but I ended up not liking it. So I was like, I'll go to a temp agency. And I signed up with a lot of temp agencies at the time. So I was like, I'll just go to another temp agency. And that's what I did. So I literally wrote that lady a letter on Friday and never came back. And a friend of mine who was still working there told me how the woman went into the office that morning all in a good mood, and then came out and her face was completely red, and she walked down the hall to her boss's office, because I guess she read my letter, because I reamed her. I'm not even going to lie. I put it all in the letter and told her what I thought of her, what I thought of her boss, and what I thought of the company for the way that they allowed that woman to treat people. And I did learn that later that black woman was fired. When the numbers didn't stop doing what they were supposed to do, and things stopped going the way that they were supposed to go, they fired her, right? But what I learned from that experience also was that white people will let black people abuse other black people with impunity, and they won't do anything about it if it's not of any advantage, and especially if those black people don't know how to assert their rights. And to my knowledge, while people went to HR and complained about the way she talked to them, I don't think any of them raised it as a discriminatory type thing. And they weren't that many people who raised it. What happened was people quit. That I had a friend that worked with the other billing department. And so she was giving me information. She's actually the person I was talking to when the woman overheard me talking, because she and I became friends. We were friends for many years before we lost touch. But she told me, and she later also told me when the woman got fired. But that was what I learned from that, was that if there was an advantage to them, in this case, they were making a lot of money because of this woman's bad behavior. And so they were willing to let her abuse those people and mistreat them as long as the money was right. And that's not just for Black people abusing other Black people. That's a general matter for employers in a capitalist system. I've seen it happen at other places. I worked at an organization, the one that had to pay me out the first time, and there was a gentleman, white man, who worked there. I'm going to tell you the difference between these two, though. He worked there for, I would have to say, 25 or 30 years. And he was responsible for the department that brought in probably at the time 60% of that company's revenue. The other 40% was brought in by membership dues and things like that. It was a membership association. But this person had created a line of business that allowed that company to not have to rely so much on their membership dues. And it brought in other streams of income. He had come up with multiple ways of bringing in streams of income. If I were to tell you what one of the main revenue producers were, you would immediately know what company I was working for. So I'm not going to tell you. But it's a big deal because he came up with one product in particular that is still used to this day across multiple major organizations and universities. And they were being paid for the use and licensing of that product. So we're talking about millions of dollars that this man was bringing in. This man was one of the most abusive, if not the most abusive manager in that company. And it was very well known that they had to pay many people severance because of his behavior. That man retired from that company. They paid me to leave. They paid lots of other people to leave. I never had any interaction with him, but it was a company known thing. But he was never fired. He's a white man. He was never fired. Even when revenue went down, and it did, he was never fired. He got to retire from his job. But that Black woman, she got fired when the money stopped being right. As soon as the money stopped being right, she got fired. And what I'm trying to say is, they may let you mistreat people that look like you, but the minute it stops being beneficial to them, they will hang your ass out to dry, and rightly so. So what I want to say to Black people who feel that it's okay for them to mistreat other Black people when they're the big boss, right? And most of these people are people who are in a company for years and years, and they climb the ladder and they step their foot on other people's heads. And then they get up there and they want to be the only one. And they want to laud how much money they make and how long they've worked at the company over everybody, especially all the Black people, and then treat everybody like shit while they kiss up to Massa and lick his feet. And they take out their anger at having to continue to lick Massa's feet on all the Black people around them because they can't take it out on Massa. That's what's really going on in most of these situations. There's a certain level of anger, and we know this, we're all traumatized, anger and resentment. When you stay in the game and you play the game and you play the game, and you may get a little promotion here and a little Supreme Court seat there and a little cabinet appointment here and a little lieutenant government job here, but they will never let you stop being a nigga. I'm just going to say it. They'll never stop treating you like one. They might even let you run for governor of Florida. But you still know deep down what they think of you. You still know. And you're always going to be their boy or their gal. And you know it and you're angry about it. But you can't punish them for it. So you want to go punish other Black people for it. And what I want those Black people to know is document. Pay attention to how they treat you versus how they treated Kyle and Becky and Fran. And then let's have a conversation. Because the minute the complaints, the valid complaints, the complaints that will expose them to legal liability start piling up, you'll be surprised how fast they'll throw that boy out and get him a new one. You'll be surprised how fast they'll throw that gal out and get him a new one. So if you think, even in these days and times, that if you got the right master, you can get away with it, you'll be surprised how fast they will hang your little ass out to dry when they need to do it. And I would be more than happy to facilitate that process if I can. Because this is not the time for us to make any excuses or any, appeasement or excuses or adjustment or understanding. And I understand the psyche. I understand where it's coming from. I've just explained to you where it's coming from. But that don't make it okay, and that does not mean that accountability must not be demanded. It must be demanded. And so if this is what you're experiencing in your workplace and you can show and document the differential treatment, please talk to me. And I know there are a lot of circumstances in which that is not as easy to do nowadays. People are working remotely. And that is also opening the door up to a lot of abusive environments because people cannot observe the way their coworkers are treated because they work from home. But a lot of these things are also happening in the office because people are also in the office and telling me these stories. But it is very important to document these things. If your employer has an anti-bullying, an anti-harassment policy, you can also weaponize that against this behavior. But you will need a volume of people to complain as well and to use the right language to make it stick. It's easier, obviously, to address these issues if you can show the differential treatment and therefore prove that there is same-race discrimination happening, right? But you can also use your employer's anti-abuse and anti-harassment, any kind of policies like that, anti-bullying that your employer may have, those can also be helpful to you. But I am just really disgusted at the number of people who have come to me about other Black people acting an ass at work, who are in supervisory roles and management roles, and just up there being very problematic to their own people. And I'm very aware that sometimes people are just horrible to everyone, but when you can obviously see that you're being mistreated, it's bad enough to be to mistreat people, period. Because honestly, there's no reason to raise your voice at anybody at work. They're not your children. They're not your kids. They're not your friends. They're not your husbands. Not saying you should be doing that to those people, but you definitely shouldn't be doing it to anybody at work. They're not your friends and peers and relations. Even when you don't like something someone does, you don't have a right to yell and scream at them. The other thing I would like to say, and I know that this may take courage from some of you, or take courage for some of you to do it, is people treat you how you teach them to treat you. And the first time somebody raises their voice at you, I don't care who they are, you got to love yourself more than you love your job, because you can find another job. When someone raises their voice at you in the workplace, I don't care where you are or what you are doing, you need to stop the conversation and say to them, I would very much appreciate it if you would speak to me in a civil tone. We are both peers, we are both colleagues, even if you are in a supervisory role. I try my best to speak to you with a civil and respectful tone, and I would appreciate it if you would do the same. And even if they get more angry or irate, you have a right to then say, I think that we should stop this conversation and give you an opportunity to get yourself together. And you get up and leave if you're in their office, or you ask them to leave if they're in yours, or you just simply remove yourself and go get you some coffee or something. And then when you're done, you go to your computer and you write them an email about the conversation that took place. Today at 1:00 in the afternoon on the day of our Lord, May 12, 1962, We were having a conversation where you got upset and proceeded to raise your voice and speak to me in an abusive manner. And I had to stop the conversation and ask you to stop. And I would just like to reiterate that going forward, I would like you to speak to me in a civil and respectful tone as I do the same with you. Even if you disagree with something I say or don't appreciate the way I did something, I believe that we must both talk to each other in a respectful manner. And if there is a company policy, cite the policy. And leave it at that for then, and send it to them and keep yourself a copy. Now, in some cases, the person will not respond if they're smart, and they will just adjust their behavior when they deal with you. If they try to escalate the behavior, then you get to go to HR with your email in hand about the pattern of abusive behavior and the hostile work environment that is being created by that person as a result. But the first time they do it, you must nip it in the bud. You must nip it in the bud. You teach people how to treat you. It doesn't matter if they are your boss. It doesn't matter if they are your colleague. It doesn't matter if it's the guy that drops the mail off in the morning. Do not allow people to verbally abuse you at work or at home or anywhere. I once worked with a woman, and I told you guys this story. I called her handmaiden of the devil. Y'all gonna hear about her a lot. And the first time she decided that she was gonna be cussing and carrying on in meetings with me, I had to stop her in front of everybody in the meeting and ask her to stop cursing in my presence and explain to her that that was not appropriate language for the workplace. And as the COO at the time, it was not the right behavior, and it was my responsibility to call it out. And guess what she did? Absolutely nothing, because she understood that I was not the one to be played with. So she stopped cussing when I was in the room. Now, she could have retaliated and ended up cutting me a check, but she didn't do that. She took what I said, she received it in the spirit in which it was given, and she adjusted her behavior. Everybody isn't going to do that, but you'd be surprised how many people will if you gave them the opportunity. But so many of us act as if we will never find another job in the world, and we love our job more than we love ourselves. And I would beseech us to rethink that position. But for all of those of us who look like me but ain't like me, because anybody that is abusing their employees, especially their Black employees, when they're Black, is definitely not like me. But I would say, and they're not like the majority of us, because I know the majority of Black people who are supervising their employees, especially employees who are Black, are not doing this. Some people would like to come into the comments and make me believe that they are, but I know that that's not true. But there is a loud minority. There's a loud minority, just like there's a loud minority of fascists in the United States, because even though it's a majority of a certain demographic, it's not a majority of the entire country. But I would say that there's a majority of the country that's willing to go along, because there's the people who are the doers, and then there are those of us who help them do by doing nothing. And the problem in my eyes is not just the behavior, but the number of us that are willing to accept the behavior. And we could be talking about the abusive bosses as well as the abusive president that y'all got right now. But right now we just talking about the bosses. But the point that I'm making is you have to stand up to people. Too many people are coming to me after they're almost at the point of a nervous breakdown before they're ready to do anything. You've got to teach people to treat you the right way. And if they can't learn how to treat you the right way, you have to be prepared to walk away with or without a check. But try to get your check first, if it applies. But definitely don't stay and let people just abuse you and yell and scream at you. Nobody has a right to yell and scream at you at work. Nobody. Nobody has a right to do that. And you don't need to accept it or tolerate it. And too many of us are accepting it and tolerating it. And I'm not even just talking about Black people. I'm talking about all employees in America. Y'all got to like yourselves a little bit more than you like these jobs. Because clearly these jobs don't like you. They don't care nothing about you. And they really do believe that you don't care nothing about yourself either, because you keep accepting whatever they give you. So I would just ask those of us who are in these positions of power and doing this foolishness, cut it out. And if you're not willing to cut it out, you better get ready to be accountable for it. Because like I said, when folks start raising the right kind of concerns, they will not hesitate to throw your ass out with the trash and find them another boy or another gal. Because Uncle Toms are a dime a dozen out here. They can find another one. And for those of you who are on the receiving end of this foolishness, book a discovery call with me. You can find the information on my website. Because I take a lot of joy in holding people like this accountable. Because we got enough to deal with out here without our own acting an ass. So that is what I wanted to talk about today. I talked a little bit longer than I planned to, but I'm going to go rest my voice now. Because I do find if I talk for a long period of time, the coughing starts. Thankfully, I didn't have to start coughing. The medication I'm taking seems to be working. But I wanted to get that off my chest, and I wanted to make sure I dropped this video today because this has really been on my heart since like the end of last week. But then I had more calls this week with some of the same issues, and it just really made me upset. So especially with everything that's going on, we got to do better as a community. I have some other thoughts and other things I want to talk about that I observe, but all I have to say is nobody wins when the family feuds. We got to do better as a community. They can go do whatever it is that they want. And as I've posted in my community, I can see them like trying to cook stuff up to get the Black community agitated because they want us to be out in the front line so we could take the shots while they stand behind us and say they're allies. Not this time. But what we do need to do is be in community with each other. We have to have each other's backs in the workplace. We've got to have each other's backs out here in the world economically. I really believe that this time around, Black people got to make their voices heard economically by not spending money, and when we spend it, spending it with each other. And white people got to take it to the streets. Take it to the streets, white folks. Go save your democracy if you want to. Go save your country if you care to. We need to be at home strategizing about how we can get our community through whatever it is that these people are doing. And we got to have each other's backs. And what I'm hearing now is that is definitely not us doing that. And so I just wanted to call it out because it bothers me. And I want to be clear. I do not believe that this is a majority of Black leaders. I do not believe that this is a majority of Black managers. I do notice that a lot of people like to come in my comments to talk about all the bad experiences they've had with Black people. And I don't fall for that okie doke because I was out there for 30 years. So I know what the real percentages are. And I'm saying if you've been working for 30 years or more, you're going to encounter some Black people that are problematic. But let me tell you what. The majority of people that I have had encounters with that were extremely problematic were definitely not people that looked like me. And the reason I remember the ones that looked like me that were so bad because they were in the minority. They weren't the majority. And I challenge anyone that would like to say that that's not true, that there's a majority of people that are bad actors in workplaces are Black people or even other people of color. And I'm not saying other people of color are not problematic because some of them are. We've talked about that white proximity seeking behavior. But some of us are doing the same thing. And I just wanted to talk about it because I hate to hear it. And I hate to see the pain that people are in because it hurts more. It hurts in a deeper way when it's somebody that looks like you. When it's your own that does it. Because we expect them to act the fool. We're more prepared for them to act the fool. It's harder when it's one of us. So I just felt like calling this out because it really hurt my heart, some of the stories that I heard in the last week or two that I've been back on my discovery calls. But if this sounds like a problem you're experiencing, please book a discovery call. You can find information linked in the description of this video. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please, please, please hit the like button. It's very important for the algorithm. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please share this video with anybody you think it would be helpful to. I notice I'm attracting some of the trolls. I just want y'all to know I'm not going to respond to y'all. I'm just going forward, I'm committed to not answering anymore at all, even when I have the time. I'm just blocking and moving on. Your comment isn't going to stay there for more than 10 minutes. I do read my comments and I do delete people with glee and joy. So if you think you're going to get me to engage with you, it's not going to happen. Okay, Kyle? Okay, Dick? Okay, Bob? It's not going to work out for you. You're not going to have access to the site for very long. So just putting that out there. But please book a discovery call if this sounds like you. I also, just before I go off, I want to thank all the people who joined the first live webinar in my anti-HR community. It was really a great conversation. We talked with my friend Michelle Wedderburn about how we both decided to move to Mexico, how we decided to move abroad, and how we went about doing it, how we mapped out our plan and executed our strategy. It was a really great conversation, and I wanted to thank all of the women, because it was all women that came on the call, that joined the Zoom webinar that we had. I will be posting, by the time you see this video, I will have posted something in the YouTube community about it and gave information about joining the community. I also want to give a special thank you to the people who have actually joined the community this week as members. I just opened up the community on Monday, and I really want, actually, was it Monday or it was over the weekend? But I wanted to thank all the people who have joined as paying members of the community. I really appreciate it. You are the ones who are making this happen for all these other people. And I want you to know that I appreciate it. And I'm already thinking of some member-only resources to add. For example, if you are now a member of the community, a paying member, you do not buy my roadmap to understand your workplace rights. Do not buy the anti-documentation journal if you're planning to be a member, because you will be able to get that for free inside the community. I'm also looking at making one of my webinars, one of my master courses, free for individuals inside the community. And I've already made several templates that come with some of my master courses free for people inside of the community. So if you are very serious about mapping your exit from a hostile work environment, join the community. You will be able to get resources and information that is for sale on my website. You will be able to access those things for free. And annual members also get a free discovery call with me. One free discovery call for the year of their membership. So, and there are other perks as well that come along with being in the community. And I'm constantly brainstorming more, and I'll soon be engaging the members to ask them what they would like to have inside the community, because I'm really appreciative. And I would like to say the majority of people who have joined so far have joined as annual members. And so I really appreciate that, because that helps me to be able to finance activities for the year, and having people commit to being members for a whole year means a lot to me. So I really appreciate that very much. I would appreciate more people joining, obviously. I am planning to spend much more of my time inside that community. I am putting together some more conversations for the community, and some of them are going to be exclusive members only conversations, and then others are going to be open to anyone who is a member of the community. To be in the community, the first thing you need to do is subscribe to my website, and then if you want access to some of the free things, you have to join as a paying member. The webinar we just had last night was open to the entire community, so that was subscribers and paying members, but we will soon be making more things members only. I'm just going to be honest. And a lot of, if you look up at what the members get, there's a lot of members only things, exclusive things, but some of these live chats are also going to be members only. I'm getting ready to put together a conversation with an employment attorney, and I'm still thinking about whether that's going to be open to everyone or just members only. I'm going to ask the members what they think. So I also am going to be asking the members what they think about things, because they're paying. And so they get to say what they think should be just for them and what should be free. So that's another perk of being a member. So I really appreciate those who are joining. I'm going to be spending a lot of time making sure that I'm doing things that cater to those people. Still going to make videos here. Still going to drop in and share information in the community, because I love engaging with you guys on here. But I also feel like some of the conversations that I want to have, especially one with the employment lawyer, there's another one I want to have about resilience and what I think resilience looks like now in these days and times. I don't feel comfortable saying some of the things that I really want to say with my chest on the ABC People's, Alphabet People's platform, because somebody's going to go run and complain and whatever. So I would rather do that inside of my forum. So some of these conversations out of necessity have to happen on in my forum with my members. And some of them I'm not even going to open to subscribers. It's going to be paying members only. And it's a small group right now, but every day it's growing because a couple people every day have been joining since I opened it up on Sunday, I guess. And I'm really happy about that. Like a week, like it's been a week. This past Sunday was a week that I opened it up, and people have really been joining, and I really appreciate it very, very much. So when you do join, please join the forum, because that's where we can actually have like conversations and comments, and I will post things there. I'm going to post questions and things there, and I'll ask your opinions. So make sure when you join, you don't just go to your landing page, but also join the online forum so that we can actually talk. And I will eventually be going live inside of the forum as well. So, because we got to do another Can HR Do That? But we're going to do it inside of the community. So thank you for that. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to say that. So thank you for that. But I just wanted to talk to us Black folk, because what are we doing? What are we doing to each other at work? We need to be nicer and better to each other at work. And I know I've been a manager, and I know it's not easy being a manager. And it's really not always easy being a manager of your own people, because some of us think that just because somebody's Black, they're supposed to let us be trifling. And that's not what I'm talking about. I have had people who are Black work for me and try stuff with me that I know they would have never tried with somebody that was white. But guess what? I didn't verbally abuse them. But I did call them out and let them know that they were going to have to do their job. Right? I did let them know, but I didn't yell at them to tell them that. I just let them know that if they wanted to keep their job, they was going to have to do their job. So I'm not talking about people who are having difficulty dealing with people who don't want to do their jobs. And I know there's some of that. There's some of that in every color. But sometimes we as Black people try each other, right? We try to test each other and then say, oh, that person is being this and that because they won't let you get away with being trifling. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about people who are in here trying to do their work and being abused by their managers. And their managers think that they can get away with it because the people they're abusing look like them. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anybody else. So don't come in my comments and act like you don't understand who I'm talking about. Don't be those people either. Because I'm telling y'all can tell I don't feel well. My voice ain't right, and I really hate that, because not only can I not speak, I can't sing, so I can't even go to karaoke. It's Friday, and I like to go to karaoke on Friday, and I can't even go to karaoke on Friday because I can't sing. So don't come in my comments and act like you don't understand what I'm talking about. Don't be obtuse. You know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. We got to do better. I beseech us to try to do better, especially now. Always, but especially now. So I hope you enjoyed this little chat. This necklace, I got it in Kenya, in case someone asks. I bought this at the Maasai Market in Nairobi, Kenya. If you ever go to Nairobi, Kenya, and you don't go to the Maasai Market, I don't know if you've actually been to Nairobi, Kenya, if you don't go to the Maasai Market. And you got to go to the Maasai Market, not a Maasai Market. You got to go to the Maasai Market. If you know, you know. But that's where I got this necklace. It's one of my favorites. And I was just feeling, I'm kind of missing Africa right now. And I really want to go back to Africa. And I actually am going back to Africa soon. If you follow me on my travel channel, you can hear more about that, because I'll be sharing a little bit about that soon, because I'm super excited about that. But anyway, I've been missing Africa, so it made me put this on. And it made me feel a little bit better when I dug it out and put it on. So, because I know somebody's going to ask me about my necklace. So that's where it came from. I can't give you a link because I bought it at the Maasai Market. And I actually have a matching earrings that match this right here. The guy made it on the spot for me at the time when I bought it. I didn't feel like wearing earrings because I thought that'd be too much. But he made me some hanging earrings that look like this as well. Just most like one of a kind, beautiful things that you can get there. So if you are ever going to Kenya, which is a beautiful country, make sure you go to Nairobi, which is one of my favorite countries on the continent, and make sure you go to the Maasai Market. Okay, thanks for watching. Please hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. share this video with a friend. I hope what I said, somebody hears it and takes it to heart, doesn't get defensive about it. If I'm talking about you and it hits a nerve, take a beat and think about what you could do differently. Don't come in my comments and start talking about and justifying being bad to people. Even if people aren't doing what they're supposed to do as managers, you have avenues and ways of disciplining them that doesn't need to be bullying and verbally abusing and discriminating. Because if you're not willing to say something to Kyle or Becky, don't say it to Kiana or Jamal or Mark, because they're not, some of us have our name Mark, or John or George. Okay? If you won't say it to Becky, don't say it to Kiana. If you won't say it to Kyle, don't say it to Jamal. That is what I'm trying to say. If you wouldn't do it to them, don't do it to somebody that looks like you. Because that's discrimination. Don't do that. All right. Hope this was helpful. See you guys in the next video. Bye.